What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Wakanda Whiskey and BLERDDOM. I'm having technical difficulties with my light here. But how you doing, man?
What's going on? That intro took like 30 minutes. It was on a perpetual loop. That was funny.
Well, technical issues.
Yeah.
But we're here, and we're here with you. If you enjoy our show, before we get started, please hit the like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And please comment in the chat. We've got a lively group of people in there already. What's up to Jorge Valdez, Robert Monroe Jr.? What's up, Pericles Dragon Balls? Tron World up in the house. Glad to have y'all here. So, with Wakanda Whiskey and BLERDDOM, what do we all start off with?
It's always about the whiskey.
What you sipping on?
Well, last week or a couple of weeks ago, we made a discussion about, this space is mainly for Black comic books or whatever, Black comic book characters. And there are several Black whiskey makers or retailers that are out there. So I made the suggestion that we should try to start focusing on those whiskey manufacturers. So to that end, both of us are sipping on Bro Brothers bourbon whiskey. Now, I will admit that I did not look them up to give more information before tonight's show, and that's my fault, but I'm sure that you guys can do a quick Googles and find out about them. So just opening it up. It's got a nice smell to it. Very floral. Let's see what we got here. Okay, that's not bad. This is not bad at all.
Let me go ahead and... You had yours breathing for a while. You had it open, didn't you?
I opened it for a couple of seconds and put the stopper back, but yeah, this is in comparison to what I've been drinking on the past couple of weeks, this is pretty good right here.
Right, it's very floral, fruity.
And I'm not saying that because it's Black owned, because if it sucked, I'd say, yeah.
Oh, this is delicious.
Yeah, this is pretty good. This is actually pretty good. So
how much alcohol by volume is this?
I'm not sure, actually. Can't read it. But for the whiskey drinkers out there, the Bro Brothers bourbon, I think I spent maybe $45 for my bottle, between $45 and $50. I want to say.
Yeah.
Roughly.
How much did you spend?
I think between $45 and $50, if that. I don't know. I bought it a couple of weeks ago, so I honestly don't remember at this point.
Mine was $25.
Okay, well, so maybe I spent that. I don't know. I don't remember.
It says 41% alcohol by volume. It's pretty smooth.
Yeah, yes, it is. And that reminds me, I don't know, well, if you've been following us here for a while, I've touted the whiskey Wolf Moon for a while now. I discovered it last year.
Man, you had me searching in the store for Wolf Moon, only to have Total Wine, which is where you get yours, tell me, yes, we have it listed at Total Wine, but it's like in another state because it comes shipped out of Indiana.
That's crazy. But check it. I've been sipping on Wolf Moon for just over a year. This whiskey was so good to me that I would literally buy it by the case. And when I say by the case, I would go into the liquor store, let me get a case of Wolf Moon. Now, you may be thinking, damn, that's expensive. But no, it wasn't, because it normally retailed at my store for about $15 a bottle. When I bought it in bulk, they would give me a discount. So it ended up, I would end up getting a free bottle, right? And so it came down to literally $12 a bottle. Now, you may be thinking $12 a bottle, that's like rot gut. No, it was not. It was very, extremely delicious. But here's the kicker.
So I realized, was that Phil Lamar in the
Right. As I was saying, though, this past week, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding country music star Jason Aldean. Well, Jason Aldean was either a co-owner or a spokesperson for this particular whiskey, right? I didn't hear the song that
for this one.
No, I'm sorry, for Wolf Moon, what I'm talking about.
Oh,
For Wolf Moon. I didn't notice all the, I didn't pay attention to all the controversy because I don't listen to country music. But I saw something on the Twitters earlier where this woman, a white woman, had a biracial daughter who was a huge fan of a particular country artist who wasn't Jason Aldean. The woman's mother, the child's grandmother, took the daughter to this concert to see whoever the artist was. Jason Aldean was also there. Now the daughter was probably about 10 or 12 years old. She had spina bifida and she was in a wheelchair. The woman, who is biracial herself, her mother is white. So the mother tracks down Jason Aldean, who wasn't a big star at this time. Tracks him down and said, "Hey, my granddaughter wants to meet you." So the grandmother walks over to where the granddaughter in the wheelchair is sitting. Jason Aldean sees her, this black child in a wheelchair, and purportedly says, "I don't have time for this," and walks away. Now, that right there just did it for me. It's like there's been a lot of speculation about this dude. That right there was the final straw. And I say all that to say, once I finish this bottle of Wolf Moon that I've been sipping on for a minute, I will buy no more because, I can't support somebody who appears to be openly racist. Can't do it, won't do it. But it's a shame because the liquor itself is pretty good. But the Burrow Brothers is a reasonable substitute. It's pretty tasty.
Look, I got this for $25. And this is delicious. I mean, you really don't need to add anything to this at all. Maybe an ice cube just to chill it. But this is delicious.
There's an aftertaste note that I can't figure out what that
is. It's kind of citrusy, right?
No,
the aftertaste?
I'm going to have to think on it for a little bit.
It tastes kind of citrusy to me at the end.
Not at the end for me. At the beginning, yes. But at the end, there's a taste of something. I just can't put my hand or put my finger on what that is. But it is a delicious drink. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So, let me ask you something. I know we discussed before we go live about the comic books that we're going to talk about. And recently, we've been doing it in alphabetical order, right? One of the comic books, did you get a chance to read A Vicious Circle online?
No, not yet. Online? No. My comics, for many of you who know, I get a lot of my comics shipped to me from an LCS because I pre-order my comics so I can get it like a 35% discount. So it takes me, I'm always like a week behind everybody else for some of my books. The ones that I'm not behind are the ones I pick up at my local LCS.
Right. Well, because you've not read this one, and I wanted to talk about this, and I know this is, may mess up your graphics or whatever, but I want to talk about
you can talk about it if you want. Go ahead.
The reason why I want to talk about it first is before this liquor gets good to me, and I want to be of a clear mind to talk about this book. This is A Vicious Circle #2. It just dropped this week. The reason why I want it to be of clear mind when I talk about this, because I want you guys to understand something. Paul and I both have been collecting comic books for over 40 years. I've been collecting a little bit longer than him because I'm a smidge older than he is. When I tell you what I'm about to say is not hyperbole in any way, stretch, or form, right? This book is without doubt, without question, without hyperbole, is the most visually stunning comic book I have ever read in my life. This book is spectacular. And in reading the story aloud, I will admit I enjoyed issue #1, but it was somewhat confusing because I didn't understand what was going on. But this issue explains everything what the story is about. And this book is about a guy by the name of Sean Thacker. He's black, right? And he is time and location skipping throughout the world. In book 2, without giving too many spoilers, he was sent in to do something to a machine. And the machine is called the Kang Turing machine, which is basically a time machine. I imagine the writer called it the Kang Turing because Kang, obviously, over in Marvel, is the time-jumping villain. And Turing, for those who don't know, is Scott Turing, who was a British mathematician who helped break the Enigma machine from the Nazis. And the Enigma machine was a coding machine so they could send messages back and forth that were coded. Alan Turing helped break that machine. So I'm imagining that's why he called it that. But in this book, you've got a black man who's jumping around throughout history trying to chase down this villain. And as a black man, he ends up in different locations where his skin color is going to be a detriment. Now, I'm going
This
to
is
show
why
this.
you don't see too many black people in time travel movies.
Right. Now, I'm showing this image right here. This is him when he's about to go on a mission. First thought that came to mind was Batman and Black Panther. I
No,
mean,
Falcon.
and Falcon, yes. Now,
That's the way Falcon should look.
right.
Marvel should upgrade Falcon. Someone posted this earlier. Marvel simply needs to upgrade Falcon instead of making him Captain America. Simply upgrade his costume. Dude hasn't had a significant upgrade in his power set since the 70s.
Right. We can talk about Falcon in a minute. Let's focus on this guy right here, right? This book, I cannot overemphasize enough how great this story was. And I know you may be thinking I'm overhyping it or whatever, but
No,
the
not at all.
artwork, the story, it is absolutely phenomenal. Now, there's an actor by the name of Yolande Knoll. A lot of people think that he would be a good replacement for Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. I don't see him in that role personally. I think he's too short. I don't know if he'd be able to pull off the accent. But having seen him in The Purge, he was a very good action star. This is the type of work that I think that he needs to be doing. I could see this as a movie or even a series where he like Quantum Leap, where he's doing his thing. I don't know if you can see this when Paul puts his back up on the main screen, but I can see Yolande or how. Yeah, let me show you. Like this dude is fighting. He's like a ninja. He's a trained assassin. I mean, he's oh. This book is extremely good. And if you guys collect comic books, and if you're here watching, you probably do, I'm going to highly encourage you to pick up A Vicious Circle from Boom Studios. And that's my spiel on that. This is a very, very good book. Very good book. And when you read it, I think that you'll probably feel the same.
Well, all right. So, what do you want to do first?
Talk about the comic books, then we can talk about the show at the end.
All right. So, if we're going to talk comics, given that this is the Wakanda Whiskey and BLERDDOM show, we have to start with our man T'Challa.
Black Panther.
Now, shout out to Dr. Eve Ewing, who has the task, unenviable task of taking the garbage left in the middle of the road and forming something beautiful out of it. So far, so good. What do you think of this issue?
Listen, I went back through my Twitters, and the previous writer, I sent out a tweet, a year ago, whenever, when issue number 2 had dropped, and I sent out a tweet basically saying that I did not appreciate that early on how the tone of the story had changed, in that people were blatantly disrespectful to T'Challa. That's 2 issues in. 2 issues in of this one, I have nothing but good things to say. Now, I'm not going to say it's spectacular. I'm not going to say it's great. It's good. It is very good. I like the tone that she's taking. I like the voice that she's given to T'Challa. I'm enjoying the world building that's going on, because we are in a completely different city with new characters who were, obviously never seen before, some that she's created. And I'm enjoying it. And it very much in issue number 1, she completely undid what the other writer did. And by that, I mean, in issue number 1, you had a character showing T'Challa the respect as the former monarch, person who has literally put his life on the line, not only for the country, but the world and universe, gave him the respect that he deserved. This character, whose name I cannot remember, basically bowed down to T'Challa. As a monarch or former monarch, that's what you would expect his subjects to do. The other writer didn't do that. He had people literally, he had some of T'Challa's subjects literally saying "F you" to their former monarch. Could not get behind it, and it just went downhill from there. I think that this book has nothing but upsides. I'm enjoying the art. I like the way that T'Challa is drawn. Whenever whoever did um, the Coates run, I was not a fan of that art style. I did not like how he looked, and quite frankly, I wasn't a fan of the artwork in Priest run only because T'Challa didn't look like T'Challa. He looked like Shaft, the Samuel Jackson Shaft, right? So um, this book, I'm enjoying this artwork, and I'm enjoying the story. So yes, I like it.
A couple of things. One of the things I love about Eve Ewing is that she is a true comic head. The woman knows her books. And if you have ever read any run of any book by Eve Ewing, one of the things you immediately recognize is the fact that she's big on sifting through the crates to find obscure references and sticking them in the comics. I love that about her. Love that about her writing. Here's one of the first ones you see here. Now you recently did a show with Chillmonger, did you not?
I did Sunday.
You guys kind of glossed over this issue, and I was actually kind of surprised. Um,
Yeah.
they had this discussion about the fact that this woman who talks about her sister living in the United States that she separated from birth, who lives in Chicago. Without even knowing the name, I immediately said she must be referring to Queen Divine Justice. She even says it right here, and none of you guys picked up on that. I had a sister too. We were separated as children, lived in America, called herself Queen Divine Justice.
For those who don't know, that's a big deal. That character popped up.
Huge deal.
That character popped up in the Priest run, if I'm not mistaken. And she was a Wakandan who was living in America. She was kind of hip hoppy. She was a younger girl or whatever. She was, I think, if memory serves, she was supposed to be a part of the Dora. I really don't remember.
She was a actual princess of the Jabari tribe who her parents fled to the United States. She was raised in Chicago, didn't know anything about Wakanda, her Wakandan background or whatsoever. Ultimately, she was supposed to be the Jabari tribe's representative on the Dora Milaje. So, long story short, she basically becomes T'Challa's ward, kind of like Batman and Robin, where he's training her, teaching her about her heritage as a Wakandan, has her learning from the Dora Milaje, and she becomes kind of like his little sidekick. Somebody recently posted something like Black Panther's never had a sidekick. That's not true. He had Queen Divine Justice. She the whole priest run. She was there.
When was the last time she's been seen?
That's what I was about to say. I'm trying to remember the last time she was seen. It was more recent than you might think. Crap. I know I'm going to kick myself later.
Yeah, I have no independent recollection of.
She even had a kind of a semi are they, aren't they relationship with Vibraxis, another young Wakandan powered mutant boy.
Right. And for those who don't know, in the Priest run, when the Dora Milaje were introduced, they were his bodyguards, yes, but they were also introduced to be sort of his potential brides, his wives in waiting, so to speak. And T'Challa, it was kind of like a harem, to be quite frank with you, but he wasn't participating in those type of activities. He used them as a political tool.
Ceremonial.
Right. He used them as a political tool, so all the tribes had a representative on the door, so people wouldn't be upset, and you had a representative from your tribe who could potentially be the queen of all Wakanda. So that's that story about the Dora. I am liking that new character that you just showed. I get the impression that they're probably going to have T'Challa and her hook up at some point. In the conversation that I had on another channel on Sunday, some of the people were saying they hope it doesn't go in that direction. But for me,
I
I hope it
disagree.
does.
My
T'Challa,
boy needs some quality time.
T'Challa needs love like anybody else. I mean, Storm has moved on. She's kind of, dating an astronaut up on Mars or whatever. So,
Craig, the corny dude.
right, I don't think there's anything wrong with T'Challa finding love close to home. This is shaping up to be like Batman and Catwoman is basically what Eve's with Dr. Ewing is doing. It seems like. Then I don't have an issue with it.
Let's look at some of the comments we have here. Robert Monroe says, first issue was great. Looking forward to reading the second one. The book art is trash.
Yeah, Serenity doesn't like the art on this Black Panther run.
That's crazy.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Chris Allen, I think, is doing an excellent job.
Richard Wright says she was in the Tales of Wakanda Marvel book.
I really like the new take on Black Panther by Eve L. Ewing and Chris Allen. It's a fresh take on T'Challa, and hopefully it will keep getting better. Pericles says QDJ and Vibraxis. Yeah, Queen Divine Justice and Vibraxis were an item.
Yeah, I have no independent recollection of that.
She was in the Tales of Wakanda Marvel book. That sounds like a novel.
Tales of Wakanda, or was it World of Wakanda?
I don't know. Richard Wright reads books with no pictures and everything, like a savage. That's crazy.
I don't have any independent recollection of that. But okay. But yes, all that being said, I personally am enjoying this book. I would encourage people to pre-order it, to pick it up, so Dr. Ewing can continue her work, and hopefully she will have a long run, at least a couple of years, to undo what has been done to the character by a previous writer.
So what do we think is going on with Deathlock? Which Deathlock is this? Because as you can see in this little bio picture, it's a Deathlock version who apparently is a soldier.
What
right?
Paul is asking is, there are several different Deathlocks out there, right? And for example, in the Savage Avengers book, where the C team of Avengers were time skipping, they ended up in the 2099 future where there was a Deathlock, and that particular Deathlock was Miles Morales. The original Deathlock from the 70s, I don't know the character, so I don't know what his name is.
The first Deathlock was a white dude. The second one, which most of us know, with the book that was done by the late, great Dwayne McDuffie, his name was Michael Collins. He was a pacifist. The next Deathlock after that was Henry Hayes, who was a soldier. That's why I wonder if that's the same guy, except his Deathlock costume was completely different. He was a medic in the army, so he wasn't really a active combatant. He was a medic, so he had kind of that same pacifist vibe to him.
Yeah. In the recent
Pericles is definitely not Michael Collins, yeah, because he's a soldier.
Right. Earlier this year, there was an Avengers Forever storyline where there were a cadre of Deathlocks, and there were obviously a whole bunch of different ones. We don't know; it hasn't been explained or expressed yet who this particular Deathlock is. And when I did a show on another channel, I raised that question, like, okay, which person is this? And I'm imagining we'll find out within the next couple of issues.
Yeah. So there was like one other thing I wanted for us to touch upon. Oh, so this is kind of a controversial part that I wanted to talk about. Let me show it right here. In this panel, T'Challa's talking to Shuri. And he says, Shuri's like, be careful. You don't really have any support. You don't have, all your weapons, your tech. And he goes, I am far from defenseless. I still have all the skills and powers imbued by the heart-shaped herb. And I'm remembering how to rely more on my senses and my intuition. This part I took a little issue with. If many of you recall, after Doom War, or because, I'm sorry, not I said after, before Doom War, in the volume, what volume number is that? Volume 4 of Black Panther, the one that was done with Shuri as Black Panther.
Fire.
Starts off with T'Challa going to visit Victor Von Doom. Gets blowed up. He is catatonic, um, on the verge of death. Um, Literally had to go into like the astral plane to like save this dude. But long story short, when T'Challa was brought back from his catatonic state, he had burned through the heart-shaped herb, which gives him some regenerative abilities. So he no longer had his super senses and enhanced reflexes and strength, all that stuff. All that was gone. He was a regular dude. So much so that um, he actually wanted to test himself, and that's what led to the Deadliest Man Alive storyline, where he goes to Hell's Kitchen and takes over for Daredevil and becomes the protector of Hell's Kitchen with no superpowers. He just had his cotton suit, a bulletproof vest, and a rope. That was it. No tech at all. He's like, if I can be a hero under these circumstances, no powers, no enhanced senses, no super strength, just my knowledge in my head, my martial arts skills that I've been training since I was a little boy, and just see what I can do. So, how did T'Challa get his powers back? Well, he went to, if you go to Fantastic Four, 607 and 608, which I can bring up here, T'Challa actually went to Bast with Reed Richards as his second to undergo a challenge to Bast, and asked Bast to give him his powers back. He's like, Bast is like, what do you want, T'Challa? Why are you wasting my time? He's like, I want to be who I was before. My sister's great. Let her be Black Panther and Queen and everything. I don't dismiss that, but I want to be what I was before. I want to be king, and I want to be Black Panther. That was his deep desire. And Bast says, "Look, you're clearly worthy. You're my dude. I like you. You got the heart, but Shuri's Black Panther, and she's ruling Wakanda. However, if you want to have powers and continue to be my avatar, we can do that. I can make you the king again. But you're not going to be king of Wakanda. You're going to be the king of the dead." So T'Challa was made king of the dead. And let me see if I can find the issue so you can see what I'm talking about. Those of you who have never read this, which is honestly, if you're a Black Panther fan, you should really, really have this book in your collection, because it's actually, in my opinion, a Black Panther key.
Yeah, that whole Fantastic Four round was actually pretty good when that dropped. What Paul was talking about when T'Challa went to Latveria, that precluded what ended up being the Doom War, 4-issue limited series where Wakanda and Latveria, or more specifically Doom and T'Challa, were pitting off against each other. Quite honestly, I hated that storyline because I did not like the vulnerability that it placed T'Challa in. Wakanda had never been conquered up to that point, but Doom just strolls on in and actually has his own face to face with Bass, and I personally I didn't like that.
So check this out. She goes, we're in the necropolis where the Black Panthers go to die, and here is where you will rule as king of the dead. Now notice all of the Black Panthers, the spirits of the Black Panthers before him. She's like, you can be a king, but you're going to rule over all of the prior Black Panthers as king of the dead. Every Panther that has ever lived, their strength, their knowledge is now yours. Every battle fought, every battle won, unbeaten, unbroken, a crown of the unconquered, a king of kings. my champion, my Black Panther. That was his power up. His power at present has nothing to do with the heart-shaped herb, at least not largely. He's getting his powers directly from Bast herself, who has given him all of the knowledge, all of the skills, all of the abilities of every Black Panther in history.
So that he's kind
Even
of like
more
the
so,
Avatar from the Avatars, like
yeah,
Aang.
very much like the Avatar,
Right.
and even more so, you saw on the Coats run, he was able to generate his own spear of Bast, an energy spear that he's able to create himself, not through tech, just from his being king of the dead.
Well,
It became his powers as king of the dead were very important to the Secret War storyline from 2000 and what is that, 15?
something like that.
Yeah, 2015, I guess it was, something around there. In which they're trying to you got God Doom, and they need, Black Panther and Namor have to rally forces to fight against God Doom. And he's like, well, we got to have an army. So he raises all of the dead and says, hey, all the dead. He goes to like the zombie world and says, hey, zombies, guess what? You're all dead. What does that make you? My subjects. I'm king of the dead. Follow me. We're going to go attack Doom. And that's what he does.
Kind of like old boy in Return of the King, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Very much so. Very much so.
But here's what I was getting ready to say, though, is when he reset the universe after Secret Wars,
yeah,
perhaps he gave himself his heart-shaped herb powers back, and that's what I was thinking.
If that was the case, all of the stuff that, remember, he was still able to generate that Spear of Bashenga thing.
But he had on a technologically advanced suit, though. It wasn't just a cloth suit.
The first time he generated it wasn't when he had a suit, though, because he was still in one of the intergalactic slave type thing.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that being said, I'm enjoying Eve's run, Dr. Ewing's run, 2 issues in.
So that was the only inconsistency is basically saying that's what his powers.
During the last person's run, 2 issues in, I had issues with the issue. This one, so far, nothing. I'm enjoying it.
All right, let's check out the next book on our list. You said we do things alphabetically. So alphabetically, next we're going to go to Avengers number 3.
Yep.
All right. Did you get a chance to read this?
Of course, yeah.
What did you think?
Like it. I'm enjoying it. In this book, the Avengers have to face off against some new villains without giving any spoilers about who they are or what they do. You've got about 5 villains that the team has to go up against. And what I like about it is Black Panther is part of this Avengers team, right?
I think you're about to say what I wanted. This is why I asked the question. Go ahead.
Right. T'Challa, well, first off, his uniform is kind of interesting. But the voice that this writer, Jed McKay, he gets it. He understands who T'Challa is as a character and what that person speaks like. The previous writer of the last volume of Black Panther did not. T'Challa in this book, the Avengers book, is self-assured, he's confident, he's competent, and he is his normal analytical, tactical self. That's something that the last writer did not understand. And so I enjoyed this issue. I enjoyed the Avengers. I have no qualms about it. I'm interested to see what's going to happen next.
I honestly don't remember the storyline because this one scene was so powerful to me. Y'all have to understand something. The last run of Black Panther by He Who Will Not Be Named was so bad. It has left. I feel like I should have like a lawsuit for post-traumatic stress disorder, for intentional infliction of emotional distress by this writer. The scars that I have are so deep and traumatic. I'll move on. But whenever I have the opportunity to see Black Panther in a positive light again, because it's been a year and a half of crap, I soak it up. And this scene was so powerful. So you got Carol Danvers, who's now the leader of the Avengers, because remember, T'Challa's been ousted. He was chairman of the Avengers. Because of the shenanigans of his run, he gets ousted from the Avengers. He's disgraced.
Right. But let me just interject this. The chairmanship of the Avengers is rotating. So, yes, he left under less than ideal circumstances, but it's not uncommon for there to be new leaders of the Avengers.
Correct, obviously. But in this particular instance, he was ousted. They had a whole issue about it. He was ousted as the Avengers chairman.
He was.
So Carol's getting the troops rallied up because they're going to attack. They said, hey, big bad's happening. People are being attacked. Avengers assemble. Let's go. T'Challa's like, not so fast. If I may. We know nothing about what's happening, what we face. Sam Wilson, who I don't like the way that Sam Wilson and T'Challa are kind of like at odds with each other nowadays. Ever since that Sam Wilson Captain America issue recently, Symbol of Truth, Captain America Symbol of Truth, they're kind of butting heads. They've been friends for forever. But so I don't really like this relationship thing. So Sam is like the contrarian. People are dying, T'Challa. And so T'Challa goes, I'm aware of that, Sam. But more will die, including ourselves, if we don't win. I'm not afraid of dying. The only thing I'm afraid of is losing.
Which is deep. Hold on, let me just interject here. I apologize. I'm sorry. But think about this. This dude says, I don't care if I die, just so long as I win. That's the heart of a champion right there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, bruh.
Jed McKay, who's the writer on this, gets T'Challa's voice. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So they go on. Carol's like, I thought I was leading this team, T'Challa. And you can almost hear T'Challa like sigh and go, you are. And you brought me onto this team despite the, and I love this word. I actually have to look it up. Opprobrium surrounding me. I had to look this word up. It means basically fall from grace. Because you wanted my counsel. So please accept my counsel and lead us. And she goes, all right, 5 minutes and we're out. You do this, you do that. Let's gather information, figure out what we're going to do. And they, Tony and Black Panther are trying to get all the information together, and they find out all the stuff. And then T'Challa goes, little information all told, but even a small blade can kill. Now we are armed. And he goes to Carol and he goes, call the play. And then she goes, all right, let's go. That one scene made this whole issue for me. It was like T'Challa being T'Challa himself all over again.
Right. And let me just say this. I like the artwork. I like his costume. I like the little lines on his face or whatever. I don't know if I like the little...
That's interesting, though, because look, this costume he's wearing, this is the one from his comic book. This is the costume he's wearing as the new Black Panther in Wakanda in Burning T'Chaka. The one he's using to confuse people to be like that, oh, you're just some guy dressed up kind of like Black Panther. But now he's wearing it on the Avengers team, which is a very public group. But I think that's a little bit of an inconsistency.
Well, okay, I see what you're saying. But in fairness, the average everyday person may not know that the person in that suit is actually T'Challa. But
another point is we don't know the time frame of all this too, because someone's got to put two and two together. If they see the Avengers out and they see Black Panthers on there, they got to realize, I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's just say that McKay understands the voice of T'Challa, how the character really is, and the last writer of the volume did not do so. And so
did not do so at all.
It's a good book. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's a good book. I like it. Next.
Darth Fur says, LOL. Kenneth Gardner, I like this new lineup of Avengers with Black Panther and Falcon. It's awesome.
Yep.
Kenneth Garden, damn, T'Challa sounds like Michael Jordan.
Right.
He
Oh,
sounds like a leader.
the one thing that I found interesting though at the end of the book, okay, so you've got on this team, you've got Carol Danvers, who's the leader, you got Tony Stark, you've got Vision, you've got Scarlet Witch, you've got Thor, you've got Captain America, Sam Wilson, and you've got T'Challa. That's 7 individuals.
Right.
Carol Danvers sends everybody out on their missions. The thing that I found interesting is, despite what Paul just said, she has T'Challa and Sam teaming up on their own mission. I just found that interesting.
That was at the end too.
Together. Yeah.
I hope that leads to like the next issue. They finally get to work out their differences.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, dope issue. So next up, we have, let's see, alphabetical.
Blade.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let me tell you. That book right there.
This book is good.
Shout out to Brian Hill, man. This brother, he wrote a mini movie in this issue.
Yes.
This was a script for a Blade film. I don't know. Look, let me look. The Blade film has been delayed repeatedly. You get news reports that reportedly Mahershala Ali is thinking about stepping away from the role if he hasn't done so already.
Somebody just made that up.
I don't know, but we know for a fact the movie has been delayed repeatedly. A large portion of that had to do with the script.
And now, because of the writer's strike, nothing is getting filmed anywhere. Well, in America.
If Marvel Studios is smart, they might want to talk to Brian Hill about what his plans are for this series and take a look at this first issue and realize they've got a Blade script right here. No need to reinvent the wheel.
Wow.
Do his origin in a flashback like they did in the original film and keep it moving. This issue was dope. Very cinematic. And did you like his new look?
Let me tell you something. This book, I'm not going to give any spoilers about what's contained therein, but the book itself was extremely well done. And the author, whose name escapes me, who is it, Paul?
Brian Hill.
He responds on Twitter, so you might want to reach out to him, let him know that he's doing some good work. When I was reading this book and going back to A Vicious Circle also, those books look like storyboards. For those who don't know, in movie making, you may think that you just set up a camera based on the script and then film. That's not how it works. The directors will hire a storyboard artist based on the script, and they will, like a comic book, plot out how the movie will be shot. When I was reading Blade and when I was reading A Vicious Circle, I'm seeing a storyboard. In my mind's eye, I'm seeing a movie. And that's what these comic books do. They invoke feelings. They invoke your mind to sit up here and visualize what's happening on the page in real life. Specifically in Blade and A Vicious Circle, that's what I saw. I saw this playing out. I'm like, oh, okay. They would have this camera angle, and the second unit director will sit up here and do this. It was extremely well done. The only thing that I'll say is I do not like how we're spending $5 and getting 6 pages of content. Back in my day, I'd spend 75 cents and get 120 pages. You know what I'm saying? So, but all that being said, this first issue of Blade is spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, didn't have to rehash who Blade was. I appreciated that because everyone knows.
There's no need to. I mean, he's been around long enough. We all know who he is.
Jumps directly into the storyline. Jumps directly into the action.
Yep.
The art by I forget the artist's name. Elena Casagrande, I believe her name is. Spectacular art. Spectacular. Look at this page here. When I talked about it being cinematic, this looks like a scene from a movie. First of all, Blade drives in with this badass car that's got ultraviolet lights. And he's like, y'all may want to seek cover. Because, like, with the 2 swords, he's got his new suit on. He's got his new fit. Oh, man, I can't say enough about this. Establishes a new big bad.
Story, but it is a good read. It is a very, very good read.
I tell you what's also interesting is in the solicits for this book, they say that Blade is going to deal more with the supernatural world, because we also have slight minor spoiler.
Wait, say that again.
Slight
Hold.
minor. There are werewolves in this book. So that's another part of the Marvel supernatural universe that pops up in this book. And from what I understand, Brian Hill is going to have more characters from the supernatural verse. I'm hoping what would be dope, I would love for Blade to be centered around that entire supernatural portion of the Marvel universe. We're talking Doctor Strange, Werewolf by Night, Brother
Man Thing,
Voodoo,
Man Thing,
Bloods,
Hellstrom.
Emma, also Bloodstone, Man Thing. I'd love all of these characters to pop up in a Blade book and make Blade not just a vampire hunter, but just like a monster hunter.
You know what what Paul is suggesting is Marvel's version of Justice League Dark. For those who
Yeah.
don't know, over there in DC, they have a whole bunch of characters who only deal with the occult and supernatural. The
Right.
Midnight Suns over in Marvel, which also included Ghost Rider and a couple other people
Ghost Rider, Wolverine.
who had supernatural or mystical powers, where that's the things, those are the things that they dealt with: vampires, werewolves, mysticism, etc. Um, I wouldn't mind those folks popping up, but or a separate Midnight Sun current version.
Yeah.
But I want this book to focus on Blade, which it seems that it's going to be doing, and I really 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 enjoy
I'd
it.
love to see Marie Laveau come back. That would be
Who?
dope. Marie Laveau.
That name doesn't ring any bells.
You don't know who Marie Laveau? Come on, dude.
I didn't say I don't know who she is. I said it doesn't ring any bells. Who is she?
I'll let you look that up, dude. Blade #1, very well done all around. Story, art, inks, etc. I just hope the fandom can get into it and can get it to #1 in the monthly sales. Yeah. I mean, please pre-order Blade. You saw enough from the very first issue to realize it's going to be a dope series. Just pre-order issues 2 and 3 right now to help move those numbers along and help the company keep it going. Doffer says, indeed, the supernatural world is the perfect medium for Blade. Absolutely.
Hold on one second.
All right.
Hold on. Kenneth Gardner says, wish Wesley Snipes would play Blade one more time, but I know that won't happen. And Michael J. White said Wesley made Marvel Studios off of the Blade movie. All right. So Wesley Snipes is 60-something years old. I feel, even though he's probably in phenomenal shape, think he's too long in the tooth to continue on in that role. Would it be cool if he made an appearance or a cameo? Absolutely, it would. Michael J. White, giving homage to Wesley Snipes, yes, to a certain degree, because the Blade movie, which came out in 1997, helped keep Marvel afloat before they created their own studio. Marvel was in the 90s was having severe financial trouble, which is why they sold off the rights to a lot of their characters. X-Men over here at Fox, Spider-Man at Sony, so on and so forth. When the Blade movie dropped, that was one of the more recent Marvel characters to have a big screen adaptation, and it was spectacularly well done. Like I want to say I saw that movie in the theater twice. Can't remember, but at the end of the day, it was very successful. Now, by modern standards, it was a moderate success. I don't even know if it cracked 100 million in those dollars, but it was a phenomenal movie, and everybody liked it, and it spawned a whole trilogy. Marvel, being able to continue as a company, started their own studio division. As we all know, Iron Man 1 was the first outing from the Marvel Studios MCU. Um, I I want Wesley to get a cameo. He does not need to continue in the role, and quite frankly, Mahershala Ali, that is not his birth name. I discovered the past 2 years ago. He doesn't need to be played. Mahershala Ali is a phenomenal actor. I love him a lot.
Mark
Mahershala.
Robinson says, I wouldn't want to see Snipes in Blade. The last time I saw him, he
Hold
looked
on, hold on, hold on, hold on,
physical.
hold on, hold on. Mahershala is about 50 years old. Okay, personally, I feel that he is too old in this role. I would prefer somebody in their mid 30s to play the role so they can have it for a decade. Mahershala, as good as he is as an actor, I think it was miscast based on age,
Yeah.
and that's what I'll say on that.
Mark Robinson says Wesley Snipes not looking too good lately. The perfect role for Wesley Snipes in a Blade movie is not as Blade, but as Blade's mentor, Jafari. The role of Jafari was kind of sort of redone or reimagined as the character of Whistler, the guy who takes in Blade and trains him and teaches him how to be a hunter and is a mentor father figure to him. That's actually a role by a black character by the name of Jafari, whose first appearance is actually in this book here. Marvel Preview Presents #3. This is a great, if you're a Blade fan, this is a great book to have in your collection. It's not the easiest book to find, but it's out there. It's out there, and you can get it at a relatively decent price.
And
But this is the first issue that Jafari, I believe, was introduced. I got this information from Rico Jones. Shout out to Rico Jones, who is the #1 Blade fan on the planet, and is a complete griot on this stuff.
Paul just mentioned with the Whistler character in the Blade movie. The character was played by Chris Christopherson, who was a big time
I
famous
said Jafari. It's Jamal Afari. Thank you for correcting me, Pericles.
Jamal Afari. Paul mentioned the Whistler character, who was played by Chris Christopherson. For those of you who don't know, Chris Christopherson was kind of a big deal back in the 70s. Not only was this dude, he ended up becoming a country western writer and singer. He was also an actor. There was a huge movie that he was in called Convoy back in the 70s. It was all about semis, yeah, Smoking the Bandit, Convoy, etc. But a lot of things that people don't know is that Chris Christopherson is a genius. And when I say a genius, I mean he's brilliant. This dude was literally a Rhodes Scholar. That's kind of a big deal. And I also want to say, if I'm not mistaken, he's a Vietnam vet. But I say all that to say, to give Chris Christopherson his shout outs and flowers to a lot of people who now in 2023 may not know who he is.
Tron World also says Wesley could play the villain.
I wouldn't want to see that personally as a Wesley Snipes fan. Not that I have a problem seeing him as a villain in general. Nino Brown, his most famous role probably, other than Blade. I wouldn't want to see him in that universe as the villain. I like Paul's suggestion as Blade's mentor, but definitely not as the villain.
Dothverse agrees. He says mid-30s is ideal for Black Panther and Blade. Yep. I would go older for Blue Marvel.
Here's the thing. You don't necessarily need to go older for Blue Marvel, just so long as they are able to present themselves as older. But
yeah, just put some gray on the temples
right,
for a 30-year-old, and you got yourself a dude.
Right. Supposedly, though, that role has been cast in the Marvels movie by an actor whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head. John Wick 4, Shamir Anderson.
Shamir Anderson, yes.
Shamir Anderson is a Canadian actor who happens to be the brother, which I discovered recently, of Stephen James. Stephen James played in the movie Race as Jesse Owens. He also was in the series Homecoming as a Gulf War vet or whatever. But he's a phenomenal actor. There's a series called Invasion that he's in. And he was the black dude in John Wick 4. So if you've seen that, that's who he is. So he's supposedly in the Marvels movie, allegedly as Blue Marvel. We'll see.
Allegedly, but God, I hope that's true. All right, so next book up. A book both Mark and I both read, and I think we both liked. And that is, I may be out of alphabetical order here. I don't remember, but Sirens of the City.
Yep, out of order. But you mentioned this book a week ago, and somebody, I don't remember who it was, the last time we had a show 2 weeks ago, you mentioned the book, you mentioned issue one, somebody commented on it, and based on that, I went out and grabbed it. This is a pretty good book. Um, Go ahead and talk about what it's about. But I actually enjoyed this book. Paul has a very been getting into more than the capes and cows that I'm used to be reading, like the horror, the magic, etc., etc. This is a good read.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about this before, but this book, it takes place in 1987 in New York. This young lady you see on the screen is a runaway. She was in a foster family, and the foster family kicked out because she manifested some type of superpowers. They live in this world where there are people with superpowers, very much like mutants, and they are somewhat ostracized in their society as well. They're kind of on the fringes of society. She basically burns down her foster family's house, and they kick her out the house. So she's a runaway living on the streets of New York. All she has from her parentage is the necklace you see around her neck. She doesn't know what it means, but she's had it all her life. And her foster mother says, this is the only I have this name, and that's it. Somewhere in New York. So she's trying to find her mother, and she's trying to survive on the streets. And it's kind of interesting because it's like a period piece, and you're seeing her explore New York in the late 1980s. It's sort of
Yeah.
the beginnings of hip hop. You still have kind of the art scene going on. Andy Warhol's hanging out in this art studio, and you see all these characters she's coming across, and she ultimately goes to an art studio and sees these other powered beings, and stuff ensues. What I loved about the series beyond the art, which was excellent. Shout out is done by Kari Randolph,
The art was okay to
um,
me. Go ahead.
who you will know from the series Excellence, among other things.
Oh, okay, okay,
Same artist.
yeah, yeah, okay.
Um, there was the world building of. I mean, I was intrigued. Like I
Yep.
felt like I was watching a film and seeing it develop and grow. Um, and I felt immersed in that world in just this one issue. So I'm incredibly excited about the others. I've already pre-ordered issues 2 and 3, just based on the strength on number one.
What I liked
Really dope
about
book.
the series was that being of a certain age, this took me back to a time period when I would have been this character's age during that time. And the way they were talking, the dress, even though I didn't have the money to dress as well as they were, it just really took me back. And I want to say that there were certain parts that they were mentioning certain artists or whatever who would have been popular of the day. It was a flashback in time for me personally, and the story was pretty good. This particular character, what we would call her nowadays, she was more of a goth chick. Back then, she was kind
Yeah,
of, they
there's
would
a
call
punk,
her
punk
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 rock.
rock scene. She was
Punk
part of the
rock
punk rock
back in
scene.
the 80s. Currently in the 21st century, she would be considered a goth character. I'm interested to see what her story is and where she's going, what she's been through. I think personally that it is a good read, and I think that folks should pick this one up. If it sucked, I would tell you, trust me. But this is a pretty good read. I did not
Mark,
realize that this was the same artist on Excellence. I really enjoy Excellence. Maybe it's the coloring in this one because Excellence was brighter. This one
yeah,
is more dark, and I
yeah,
understand that
it's
that's
very
probably the
subdued
theme.
colors in this.
I understand that that's probably the theme that they're going for, but I don't like that as much as the art on Excellent, which was more vibrant.
Mark Robinson says Sirens of the City is pretty good. There was a few confusing panels, but the sequential art is pretty good. I grew up in New York City and thought the artist did a great job recreating that time. Yeah, I agree. Like I'm originally from New York myself. I remember what New York in the late '80s looked like, and he captured that very well.
Basically, the clothing and the style of the main character, whose name I don't remember, and her boyfriend. He was a b boy, as well as his crew, and watching music videos at that time, that's how people looked in the 80s, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So next book, one that was absolutely fantastic. I can't say enough about how dope a read this was.
So hold on a second, real
Static
quick.
Shadows of Dakota #5.
Hold on a second. So you're just skipping over Noctera. We're not going to do that one, or we can. I can do it later.
No, I'm not doing. I didn't read that
Okay, I'll do it at the end.
one. Static
Static.
Shadows of Dakota #5. This was an experience. Um, this was the Eben issue.
Yeah,
You
Evan is that
truly
dude.
got to see more of Eben, got to see more of how he thinks, what makes him tick, how his powers work. You got to see a lot of how his powers work in the prior issue, #4.
So
And
hold on
we
a
saw
second.
some things.
Was Evan introduced in the cartoon or in
Yes,
the comics?
he was introduced in the cartoon. This is his first time he's in the comics.
Okay.
Um,
Evan is that dude. Like his
Eben deserves
mindset.
his own series. He's an
Oh,
anti-hero. I could see him in a spin-off series easily.
you know what? Evan is kind of Spawn esque. Evan is kind of like Spawn.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
He's an anti-hero. It's not 100% villain. He's too hardcore to be a hero. He's definitely an anti-hero.
yeah.
Um I enjoyed this issue. I am hyped for the next issue, which I believe is the no, there's two more. There's two more issues, 6 and 7. 6 and 7. So they're nailing out the part. I hope the numbers on Static Shadows of Dakota are good enough that they might want to consider just making it into a regular series.
The writer
Because
Nicholas
I thought
Draper.
it was originally slated to only be 6 issues, and I know it's 7 now.
Okay. The writer Nicholas Draper Ivy touches on some emotional. He pulls the heartstrings based on some
Oh
things
my
that
god.
happen. The art by Vita Ayala. This is a spectacular book. This is a very extremely good book.
The
Cannot say
last
enough
two
about
issues
it.
literally had me choking up. It was that emotional.
Yeah, it was. Without giving any spoilers, the way that Static it deals with certain issues, it's just this is a very good read. This is a good read, and like I said,
Indeed.
this was as Paul just said a moment ago. This was the Eben issue. I didn't watch for whatever reason back when it first appeared. Static Shock. I don't know what was going on back in the '90s when this series dropped. I just didn't watch it, so I'm not as familiar with the character. But reading him in this book, I sent a tweet out to the writer and the artist. Listen, this is a good read. We're 5 issues in. You should be able to pick it up very quickly and easily. Static is that read. Static is very good. No complaints. For the stuff that dropped within the past 2 weeks, because this book dropped last week, and Vicious Circle dropped this week. Vicious Circle would be my number one. Static would be my number two.
Yeah. All right. So next issue I want to talk about. It's not really a black. This particular issue was not really a black issue per se,
And the story
but
isn't a black issue at all.
not per se. But there was it. Let me pull it up.
All right, so what we're about to talk about is Ultimate Invasion. For those
Ultimate
who,
Invasion.
for those who don't know, back in the early 2000s, Marvel created the Ultimate Universe. I don't know what the Ultimate Universe number is. I don't recall, but
It's 6160
6160. So basically, what Marvel
or
did was
1610.
that sounds
I'm
more
sorry, 1610. It's 1610.
right. So basically, what Marvel did is for those of us who've been collecting comic books for a long time, we've been knowing these characters forever. For people who may be new to comics, they created a different universe where people could jump on and would tell stories of our well-known favorite characters in a different manner that did not adversely affect or impact what we know in the main Marvel 616 universe. You had Ultimate the first off you had the Ultimates, which was basically the Avengers. You had Ultimate X-Men, you had Ultimate Spider-Man, Thor, so on and so forth. You also had Ultimate Fantastic Four. In the Ultimate Fantastic Four, they introduced, among other things, the Marvel Zombies, which was a phenomenal read. I want to say it's Ultimate Fantastic Four 21 through 24 or 22 through 25, something along those lines. The stories were self contained within those three issues. And on the cover of them, specifically the Fantastic Four, it would tell you what the storyline was. So if you want to read a good story, the Ultimate Fantastic Four Marvel Zombies. But Reed Richards, who we all know in Marvel 616 is considered the smartest person on planet Earth, he reached out to another universe where he met an alt version variant, as they call him now, Reed Richards. That dude is brilliant without the moral compass of the quote unquote main Reed Richards or Ultimate Fantastic Four Reed Richards. He's brilliant. I'm not gonna call him evil, but he lacks the moral center that the Reed Richards that we know and quote unquote love has. And that particular character was brought over into the Marvel 616 universe due to the events of the Secret Wars from 2015. Their universe, the Ultimate Universe, does not exist. So that's the basis of the Ultimate Invasion storyline is the Ultimate Reed Richards that is the, morally compromised Reed Richards trying to get back to his own universe. And that's the same universe that Miles Morales comes from, even though he's now in Marvel 616. This is, two of the best teams for me is like Chris Claremont and whoever illustrated the X-Men in the 90s, in the 80s.
There was a few great artists of the 90s, dude. I mean,
well, whoever Chris
Marc
Claremont, during the whole Dark Phoenix saga, whatever that it was, Chris Claremont, and I can't remember who the
John Byrne, probably.
Probably, yes. That's one of the top, in my estimation. That's one of the top artist illustrator team ups in comic book history. Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch is up there in top 5 for me personally. And this is a very good read. This particular issue isn't a black centric issue, but it is still a good read. But let me ask you this, Paul.
Whoa, hold on. Let me say something about the book. It's not a black centric issue. However, they did have one interesting thing occur in this issue, and that's this. They introduced the character War Machine. They introduced Ultimate War Machine, but it's not it's not James Rhodes. This brother who you see on the top, the long beard, the bald head, not James Rhodes.
And that's what I was getting ready to ask you. That's Obadiah Stane.
That's Obadiah Stane. It's a reimagined Obadiah Stane. In this particular universe of this book, it's the 6160 universe. And so, Obadiah Stane is black.
Okay, so that's what I was getting ready to ask you. Is he black or was he just like supremely?
No, he's black. He's a black man in this particular universe, and he transforms into War Machine.
But here's the reason why I was getting ready to ask Paul that question. If you pull up a panel of this Obadiah Stane by himself, he looks exactly like what's my man's name who played him in the first movie? Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
He looks just like Jeff Bridges, except darker. So I was somewhat confused if he was supposed to be, the 2D version of Jeff Bridges, or was this a brother? Because he had the same look of Jeff Bridges with the bald head.
Yeah, they used the look from the movie. The Obadiah Stane in the comic books never had a beard. He just was bald. He looked more like Lex Luthor.
Obadiah Stane in the original Marvel 616 was an industrialist who had, full head of hair, blah blah blah.
No, he was bald headed. I mean, he was yeah, he kind of looked like Lex
Luthor. Bald, but he didn't have a mustache and beard.
Right.
So that is.
I thought that was kind of cool because the Ultimate Comics always does. The Ultimate Comics came out before the MCU, and the Ultimate Comics reimagined the Marvel universe from a more modern lens. So, secret identities wasn't a big thing. Wearing masks wasn't a big thing. Making their power sets more realistic, making the tech more realistic to explain things. All this happened in the Ultimate Universe, and Miles Morales was created in this universe.
Right.
And moreover, this universe formed the basis for the MCU. The MCU has stolen repeatedly from the Ultimate Universe.
The reason why we have a black Nick Fury in the MCU is because of the Ultimate Universe. And I'll never forget in the Ultimates, which again was their version of the Avengers, is there in one of the issues, I don't remember which one it was, but the team was talking about if their story was being told live action, who would play who. And Nick Fury, Ultimate Nick Fury, was saying, of course, only Sam Jackson could play me. And the way that the character was drawn looked just like Samuel Jackson, who, by the way, went to Morehouse College here in Atlanta, Georgia. So when they decided to bring Nick Fury to life, they didn't have the white Nick Fury that we grew up with, who was played by David Hasselhoff in the 90s. They got the man who the character was based on, Sam Jackson himself. And
the other interesting thing about the Ultimate Universe, if you enjoyed the first Avengers movie, you can thank Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch, the writer and artist of this new Ultimate Invasion storyline, because the first Avengers movie was the Ultimate's first volume. The antagonist that you see, the invasion of New York by the Chitauri, all that happened literally in the Ultimate comic book before the MCU made its first film. So yeah, the Ultimates were dope comic series.
So you are confirming that Obadiah Stane is black in this, is what you're saying?
Obadiah Stane is black in it and he becomes War Machine. They don't call him War Machine, but the armor looks like War Machine.
With the gray and silver, yes.
Right.
But I mean, I'm looking at one of the panels right now, and he looks just like Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, just black.
Right.
Yeah,
well, right. And that's what was confusing me. But it's a good read. It is a very, very good read. Gonna read the comment?
All right. So we are going to take a commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Well, first off, read some of the comments that we made.
No, I think we went through all the comments.
People have commented since.
Let's see. Richard corrected you that Vita Ayala is a writer, not an artist. Okay. That Tron World says that Nicholas Draper Ivy's intent as co-writer and artist. That was his intent, was to pull your heartstrings, I guess. Kenneth Gardner says, what do you think about Icon versus Hardware? I love that series. I absolutely love Icon versus... Marc is ambivalent on it. But Marc was never into the Milestone. He never read Milestone when they originally came out.
Regardless of whether or not I never read Milestone, I liked Icon and Rocket. I'm loving Static. So that has nothing to do with it. It's just that... And I love Reginald Hudlin. It's just that this particular... I'm not a fan of Hardware as a character. That's what it boils down to. I do not like the character.
Fine.
So,
I love the series. I think the concept of what would you do, Black Man, if you had a time machine, and them answering that question was really dope. Really dope. Kenneth Gardner says, Static is a great comic along with new books on Icon and Hardware. Great to have Milestone back in action. I couldn't agree with you more.
Concur.
Chad Kinsler says, what's up to everyone? All right. So, as I said, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Secret Invasion. But first, I think my boy Richard's in the chat. Let's hear one of the books that he's recommended us to read.
When Batman asks you, are you willing to die for your cause? You best believe it. It means you just might messing around with the Dark Knight. But there's a darker knight on the scene named Orpheus. This Rich recommends is Batman Orpheus Rising. It is a 5-issue miniseries written by Alex Simmons and drawn by Dwayne Turner. Gavin King, aka Orpheus, meets Batman while investigating a series a cop's dying by way of homicide. And get this, they think they are racially motivated. Ain't that a switch? Nevertheless, all these homicides are going down, and it seems as if these cops were no man's land veterans. Check that run out too. Either way, Orpheus goes to the Hill, the place that Batman rarely goes to confront a gang called the Deacons. In fact, you should go check out Batman the Hill for that revelation. Anyway, Batman being Batman doesn't care for vigilantes in his city that he didn't or doesn't train. The nerve. But Orpheus is just trying to give black children a black superhero. How you love that? They work it out, of course, and save the day. Side note, Orpheus does die for his cause in another tale, Batman War Games. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, peace.
Before we talk about Secret Invasion, one thing I
Hold
want
on. Pericles Dragon Ball says somehow, some way, someone needs to figure out a way to bring Orpheus back. I can't agree more, man. Understand, interesting thing about Orpheus, and I may be wrong on this, but I haven't found anyone to tell me otherwise. I believe that is the first black superhero at DC Comics created, written, drawn, and created by black creators who had his own title. First one.
Orpheus?
Orpheus, yes.
When was this?
He just told you. Did you not watch the commercial?
No, I was doing something else. When was this?
Let me look at when it came out. First issue came out 2001.
No.
5-issue series.
So, but okay. So what you're saying is he's the first DC-led black. Okay, all right. I'm not familiar with that character at all.
You got to get it, man.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that in the least bit.
5-issue series. Rich be finding some books, man. Let me tell you. He is officially he's the Black Comic Lord's official griot.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that character at all.
Yeah. Who was the writer and artist? Writer was Alex Simmons. Artist was Dwayne Turner. Black team created and did this self-titled black series for DC. First time that ever happened to DC Comics.
In the 2000s.
I'm trying to think of another team that's happened since. Probably not until Nubia. But they didn't create Nubia. They created this character.
What are the powers?
Just a crime fighter.
So basically,
vigilante.
like Batman.
Yeah, basically like Batman. Just a vigilante.
Gotcha. All right. So before we talk about Secret Invasion, I just want to mention real quick, Noctara. Issue number 15 dropped recently. In the Noctara universe, basically, there is no light in the world. The sun has been blotted out for some reason. There are creatures that become adversely affected by the lack of light. They become monsters or shades. Really, really enjoying this book. It looks like it's getting ready to come to its conclusion with the next issue, written by Scott Snyder and Tom Daniel. One of the main characters is a young brother who is probably about 16, 17 years old. It's very, very detailed. It's very interesting. I'm enjoying this book. It says to be concluded in Noctara 16. So probably it's in trade paperback form at this point. This is a good read as well. Noctara. So we're on issue 15. So, Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion. Final issue, the final episode aired. Let me start with this. I have enjoyed this series from the beginning. I love the fact that that Nick Fury finally, as a character, got some more shine, because his role in the last phase of the MCU has been very lackluster. Um, and I think the best thing I can say about this series would be the acting. The scenes between Samuel L. Jackson, Don Cheadle, and also um, Kingsley Benadir have all been stellar, top notch, and exceptional. I think the acting, particularly in this particular episode, was outstanding. The scene between Kingsley Benadir and Samuel L. Jackson, that was riveting acting. I mean, that was award winning acting. That being said, the script sucked. And I found that the final episode was mid at best. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't good, if that makes sense. That's my take on it.
My go?
Sure.
As Skip Bayless would say, it's my turn. Now, with that being said, I am a huge espionage fan. That's one of my genres that I like more than anything. I love this cerebral aspect of spies and trying to get over on people or whatever the case may be. I love espionage stuff. That's what Secret Invasion is. It is an espionage show. I didn't necessarily expect there to be, big whiz bang things, whatever. I expected it to be a slow burn. Have no issues with that whatsoever. Not every show needs to be, have explosions every issue, whatever. The problem with this series, and shout out to Sam Jackson, shout out to Don Cheadle, shout out to Olivia Colman, shout out to Olivia.
Oh,
Uh,
Olivia was fantastic.
Olivia was phenomenal. Shout out to Kingsley Benadir. There was some phenomenal acting in this series,
Yeah.
right? The problem with this series is twofold. Number one, it was only 6 issues. Number two,
Episodes.
episodes. It was only 6 episodes. Issue number two, only one, maybe two of the episodes exceeded 50 minutes.
Right.
This series needed to be between 8 and 10 episodes of an hour each. We, at the conclusion of this, should have had the equivalent of 2.5 MCU movies. We didn't get that.
Yeah. They skimped on us.
It was Secret Invasions in the comic books, for those of you who don't know, was a cross-issue storyline, where the Skrulls have invaded Earth, have impersonated superheroes, and all this other stuff. It was a big effing deal. The way that it was done in the MCU on this show seems somewhat cheap. I want to say tawdry, but that's not appropriate in this phrase, in this realm. There should have been more. We should have more appearances of potential characters other than what's my man's name? I'm not going to give any spoilers other than what was happened in the first episode a couple of weeks ago, a month ago at this point. What's my man's name? White dude, Everett Colson, not Colson, Everett Ross.
Yes.
Everett Ross. Everett Ross is one of the few characters who have translated over from the big screen or whatever to this outside of Talos and Sam Jackson. Everett Ross was a Skrull. We should have seen more of the MCU characters appear or potentially be Skrulls. One of the things that I've been saying since the unfortunate death of Chadwick Boseman and learning that Ryan Coogler was going to kill off the character is that the character that was killed off in T'Challa was in fact himself a Skrull. It would have been so great for me personally as a T'Challa fan for them to show a new actor as T'Challa at the end of this series. All that being said, the series up until this final episode was hovering around an 8. The final episode was so lackluster that it unfortunately dropped the entire series down for me personally to about a 5 or a 6. I don't see myself watching this series in its entirety again. I may very well watch episode 2 because that's the episode where you have Sam Jackson and Don Cheadle, quote unquote, square off for the first time. Now, understand this: the MCU has been around at this point for 15 years. That was the very first time that Don Cheadle and Sam Jackson have ever interacted with each other on screen. They appeared on screen together during the funeral of Tony Stark during Avengers Endgame, and I want to say that's it. But this was the first time that they went mano a mano. The acting in this was absolutely superb. Olivia Colman, Oscar winner, Olivia Colman, she chewed up every scene that she had. Talos, when he was going up against Nick Fury, great acting. Kingsley Ben-Adir, who's going to play Bob Marley in an upcoming biopic, who's one of my fan casts to be the next James Bond. His acting, superb. All of this high profile talent, world-class acting talent, was wasted because of lack of vision by the showrunners. There was no reason for this series to have just been 6 episodes of 25, 30 minutes. That made no sense. So, yeah, I just wasn't a huge fan overall of the series based on the final episode.
Pericles says they have been boo-booing on the finale.
The only good finale that for me was WandaVision. WandaVision finale was phenomenal. It was a very good, and Loki. WandaVision and Loki had some very good finales. Yeah.
Richard Wright says the finale could have been better. They needed more time in episodes, definitely. I think the last episode was what? Less than 40 minutes?
It's like 35 minutes.
It was absurd. Like, who does a finale for an episode? The whole show was only 6 episodes.
The show was 6 episodes.
I think maybe the first episode was an hour and everything else was like less than 40 minutes. 40 minutes or less.
All right. So we've got 6 episodes. Episode 1, 53 minutes. Episode 2, 56 minutes. That was the best episode. Yeah. Episode 3, 42, 4, 36, 5, 37, 6. It doesn't say. But, I mean, none of these episodes...
I know for a fact that episode 6 was less than 40 minutes. Jeezy to Pleasy says they spent $220 million on this.
Right.
It doesn't show.
Probably $20 million of that was to Sam Jackson. And I don't, I won't begrudge him that at all. I
was really disappointed, man, because the Secret Invasion storyline in the comics was a big deal because it really did a mind scrub on you because you didn't know who was who to trust. You had that to some extent with the Rhodey character, because immediately after you find out someone's a Skrull, the first question is, well, how long have they been a Skrull?
Right.
That was probably the one thing that would hopefully carry over in this, because as you can see in this picture right here on the screen, when Rhodey wakes up and is revealed as a Skrull, the real Rhodey wakes up, they wake him up. He's still wearing a hospital gown. The last time we saw Rhodey in a hospital gown was after his accident in Captain America Civil War. And you see him in the hospital gown going into an MRI machine, and they're determined that his spine is shattered in several places.
Okay, let me just interject.
So it's possible. I'm not saying this is definitively. It's possible that after that accident in that scene is when he got swiped. If that's the case, then everything that we saw in Infinity War, Endgame, Falcon and Winter Soldier, That was a scroll.
All right, so let me.
It would certainly explain the fact that in Falcon and Winter Soldier, he didn't have his leg braces anymore. There was no explanation as to why he didn't have leg braces. You can't argue, well, he had them underneath his clothes because he had them. Oh, they're big, and he had them over his clothes in Infinity War. For some reason, miraculously, he could walk again with no problems.
All right, so I'm going to disagree with what Paul said, and my disagreement is based on a couple of the other channels that I watch on YouTube, specifically Screen Crush.
All I said is that it's possible he was swiped at that point.
I understand that. I'm going to disagree with you based on the analysis conducted specifically by Screen Crush and Heavy Spoilers. If you are into nerd stuff, the nerd shows, MCU, things of that nature, those are two good channels to watch. But Screen Crush specifically did this very analysis. And when you look at Avengers Endgame specifically, when Avengers headquarters is dropped on them, Rhodey comes out of his suit. And I can't remember the phrase that he says 3 times to make his suit open up. But he's crawling out of his suit. If that was a Skrull who had his or her legs, they would just get up and walk. Also, Rhodey was bleeding, right? And if I'm not mistaken, they say that at the funeral of Tony Stark, or the memorial service, you could see Rhodey with his leg braces on top of his clothing. So Screen Crush speculated that the replacement happened sometime after Endgame, but before Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because as Paul just said, Rhodey didn't have on his leg braces during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but he did have them on during Endgame. So, at some point he may have had to go to the VA, get a checkup or whatever, and was snatched at that point. So, personally, I don't feel or think that he was a Skrull going back that far. After Endgame is when he became a Skrull, or when he was replaced. My question would be, when was Everett Ross replaced?
That's a big question.
And if Everett Ross...
Now, he knew... Look, we know that Everett Ross knew who Rhodey was. So that places him at least after Black Panther. That would place him after... Not Black Panther. After Captain America Civil War. Which would have been the first place he would have ever met it.
Yes. So, and one of the things that was said in the final episode, spoiler alert, is, one of the Skrulls was basically saying, a lot of the world leaders were replaced. Well, T'Challa was literally a world leader. He was the leader of a nation. You had a Skrull in his country in Everett Ross. So if they can get Everett Ross as a Skrull, there's no logical reason why they couldn't have T'Challa as a Skrull as well. And I really, really hope and wish that Kevin Feige, however you pronounce his name, at some point realizes the mistake that they made by killing off the main character of that intellectual property that is Black Panther, and make that character that died a Skrull and bring back another actor in the role. Damson Idris. That's what I hope.
What's interesting is Black Panther's the harvest DNA that Nick Fury was pulling together of all of the combatants and the Battle of Earth. Amongst that DNA they collected was that of the Black Panther. Mm-hmm. So the question becomes, what else did Nick Fury do with the DNA? One does not collect DNA and put it in a fridge and just say, I'll get to it when I get to it. That's not really kind of how the government works. Yeah. That's not how someone who, like Nick Fury, who is paranoid and always trying to think of the 5 steps ahead of everyone else, would go. That's not how he would operate. He would get the DNA and then he would have plans for it.
What didn't make sense to me was all of that DNA in a DNA suit together. That's what didn't make sense to me. Like,
right.
That's the only part of that.
Yeah, the props department didn't do a good job on that. They should have made a container that had
10 vials of DNA of each different character or person that they're trying to replicate, but just one vial. I mean, that didn't make sense.
That did not make scientific sense. Even basic science 101
Right,
says you don't
right.
mix different cultures together.
You know,
Um,
I'm not gonna suggest that people watch the series in its entirety because the series is important because it will lead up to Armor Wars and probably overall what's going on in the MCU from that standpoint. But specifically, episode number 2, when you have Sam Jackson and Don Cheadle on screen together discussing what they were discussing, it was just
yeah, discussing black men
far
getting power.
that was by far the best dialogue of any MCU property over the past 15 years. Nothing tops what those two did on screen for about
Well,
5
I
minutes.
mean, I wouldn't know if it's the best, but it's certainly up there with the conversations that were
What would
had
you
in
put
Falcon and
above
Winter
that as
Soldier.
far as dialogue? What would you put up there as far as
Falcon and
dialogue?
Winter Soldier dialogue about a black man being Captain America.
Not better than
That
that to
was
me.
that was probably one of the
It was
most powerful scenes I've
it
ever
was
seen in the
cool,
MCU.
but not better than that scene to me. To me,
All right.
yeah, that was by far the most riveting. Because you say that, and I vaguely remember it when those
Sean
two were
says
on
that he actually gave a brief explanation for the braces being
right.
removed, something about a
Hold
chip
on a second.
implant.
But when those two were on screen together, when Sam and Nick were on screen together, I literally watched that scene like 2 or 3 times. The scene
Yeah.
that you're talking about in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it just played, and it was cool or whatever. That scene right there between those two was the best scene dialogue wise of any scene in the MCU, and I challenge anyone to find something better than that.
Not just the dialogue, just the way that
The
they
acting,
delivered those lines.
it was phenomenal, and that
Yeah.
did not happen to me based on what you were saying. It was just nah.
Yeah, the next scene that you saw that was powerful like that, honestly, came from Kingsley Ben-Adir when he was talking to Nick Fury. When Gravik was talking to Nick Fury at the end of this
In this final
episode,
episode, yeah.
that was some powerful acting.
Kingsley Ben-Adir, as I said a moment ago, is going to be Bob Marley in the upcoming biopic. He also played Malcolm X in One Night in Miami. He should have been Oscar nominated for that role. He was not.
Indeed.
It's also my understanding that he was in the Barbie movie, which I have not seen yet. I know you probably took your daughter to see it 3 times,
No.
but I imagine he probably did a good job in that as well.
Yeah.
Kingsley Ben-Adir is a very, very good actor. My first recollection of him was in the highly disregarded King Arthur movie by Guy Ritchie, who's one of my favorite actors.
Wait, he was in that?
He was in that, yes. He was in
Oh,
that.
wow.
Right. He was also in a couple of episodes of the Netflix show Peaky Blinders, which is phenomenal. If you like gangster stuff, I highly recommend Peaky Blinders. He was in that as well, in a few episodes of that. But I say all that to say Kingsley Ben-Adir may not necessarily be a household name. He should be, and I think that after the Bob Marley biopic comes out, he would be.
Mark says, I like your theory on T'Challa. I think it means T'Challa. But his sister was using DNA to try to fix him. Well, that's an interesting question.
I didn't see the movie, so the only thing that I'll say is she may not have known that he was a Skrull. Because one of the things that Skrulls can't even tell Skrulls when they are when they're impersonating somebody else. And that was displayed in the final episode of Secret Invasion without giving any spoilers.
So we know that T'Challa's DNA was taken. What are the possibilities here for that DNA? See, because here's the thing. Although the DNA was all placed in that one vial,
which makes no sense.
Do we know if that's the only vial? We don't.
Yeah, that we don't know.
One of the things Nick Fury said is, "I've got these things all over the place." He found the vial in this graveyard, And Nick Fury says he has these stashes all over the world in all these graveyards with his name on it. Do we know that that vial is the only sample that he had? That one of the things scientists never do is just put all their eggs in one basket. They usually kind of spread their stuff out. So I don't know.
Science is failure. The whole premise of science is failure. You try
Right.
something, you fail, you try again. That's what science is based on.
You
Science
wouldn't
is
put
predicated
all
on
your
failure.
vials in one thing. You wouldn't put all your samples in one vial. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, even if you wouldn't put them all in just one vial, from a practical standpoint, semen. If you're trying to create a child, you're not going to have 30 different dudes in one cup and inseminate a woman. So that's what DNA is. It's the genetic makeup and material of individuals. You're not going to have some DNA semen soup and put it in one vial. That doesn't make sense. So that's another criticism of it. But the acting was great. Olivia Colman was great. All of the acting was top notch. It was just the story that was lacking. So anyway,
Could they clone T'Challa?
yeah, easily, absolutely easily.
They said, Nick Fury said, at the Battle of Earth, nearly every single Avenger shed blood. T'Challa's wearing a vibranium suit. The only part of his body that would ever be exposed might be his head if he decides to pull his mask down. Where is he spilling blood? The assumption is that they got his sample during the Battle of Earth.
They could have
What
got
if-
it during the Battle of Earth. They could have got it. You would imagine that if Everett Ross, as a Skrull, was in Wakanda,
Correct.
he had close proximity to T'Challa. There's no telling. He could have got his toothbrush. I mean, there's no telling how he could have got that DNA. There's just no telling.
Right. Which means that they could have had it earlier than that. Right? I just don't see, based on how Nick Fury acts in the comics, I just don't see them collecting these samples and not doing anything with it. It's just not how nefarious spies work. That's not how Nick Fury works.
Well, as I was saying a moment ago, and on the Screen Crush channel, maybe heavy spoilers, they were speculating about that very thing. What was he going to do with this? And based on the Chitauri invasion, the Thanos invasion, all this, Nick Fury was probably trying to plan for the next invasion later on. And if these two things: number one, let me get my own team, perhaps. Number two, let me develop something to counter their strengths with whatever their weaknesses are. So that may be another reason why he did it as well. Same thing with Batman. Batman has a way to defeat every other member of the Justice League. There was this, I think it was in a comic book, maybe even just the movie. The first time that Batman met Cyborg, he implanted him with the virus that Cyborg didn't know was there, that would allow Batman to take over his cyborg body if he ever got out of line.
All right, so let's think about the timeline.
What Nick Fury was thinking.
Pause. Pause. Think about the timeline here. He says, in the Battle of Earth, nearly every Avenger shed blood. When we're talking about the Battle of Earth, what movie are we talking about? It's not a trick question.
Oh, so that's not a rhetorical question. Say it.
That's not a rhetorical question. What's the answer? I'm asking. What? What?
Ask it the question again.
When he was referring to the Battle of Earth, what movie is he referring to?
Endgame.
Endgame, correct. In Endgame, the Battle of Earth happened at the end of that film. You agree?
Yeah, of course.
All right. At the end of the film, they brought back all of the people from the snap, right?
Yep.
Where was Nick Fury during the snap?
He was in Atlanta.
No. He was blipped. He was snapped. He was gone for those 5 years.
Here, no. What I'm saying.
Hold on. Let me finish.
No. Hold on.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
When everybody came
Let
back,
me
they came
finish.
back to
Let me
where
finish.
they were.
Hold on. When Nick Fury was snapped with everyone else, he was gone. When they came back at the end of Endgame, they had just been brought back. How would Nick Fury have had the time to go to all his Skrulls and say, hey, y'all, we're about to have this big battle over at Avengers compound. I need you all to collect as much DNA as you can.
That wouldn't have happened.
No, it wouldn't have. Which beggars the next question. He's had these spies for a while. He's had the Avengers Initiative for a while at that point. How do we know that he wasn't collecting DNA for a while before that battle?
And he may very well have been after Avengers 1.
Yeah.
Going back to 2012 when Avengers 1 dropped, when he started seeing these proliferation of superpowered individuals.
What's up, frustrated fans?
He may very well have started collecting at that point. To your point, no. At the end of the battle for Earth, no, there was no way that he would have been able to start collecting then. It was one of two things. Number one, he was collecting all along after the Avengers movie, or in between the time of the snap and his return and the funeral for Tony Stark. Once he came back and realized what was going on, he could have reached out to his people and said, hey, I'm back. Here's what I need you to do. But what makes more sense to me is that over a period of 10 years, from the time of the first Avengers movie to his return from being blipped, he would have been collecting all of that period of time. So
that's
going to your point, it wouldn't have made sense that he would have got it during the Battle of Earth. I would think that he would have gotten it over a period of time.
He might have certainly got some after that battle, but it does not stand the reason that he got all that stuff during that battle.
Right. Or
in fact, one of the characters he got the stuff from was from
Groot. And Groot,
not Cull Obsidian, the
Dark Maul, Black Maul or whatever.
Oh, jeez. The guy who had his arm cut off in Infinity War.
Yes. But here's something else that I'm thinking about.
That was before the blip.
Right. Here's something else that I'm thinking about is that he may have just given a quote-unquote prime directive for his agents to collect samples from anybody who displayed any sort of powers or whatever, even without his having to be there. You know what I'm saying? So they may not have necessarily had to be told each and every time, just a blanket directive to say, hey, anytime somebody makes an appearance, collect some samples from them.
Now that makes sense. That makes sense. But that also means that it's probably been happening for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Which now, I mean, that's another reason why this show needed 2 more episodes at least. Because the whole fallout of how long has Everett Ross been gone? How long has Rhodey been gone? None of that's got explored. That's part of the brilliance of Secret Invasion, is finding out how long they've been gone. And then you've got to sit there and trace in your head, and you're like, my God, this guy wasn't there for this. This was a Skrull. This was a Skrull during this part.
Well,
it messes with your head. That's the beauty of Secret Invasion.
At least we have Armor Wars confirmed to be coming out. And these are some of the issues that will probably most likely be addressed as how long was Rhodey in captivity. So
right. I really hope they get to do a deep dive. The one good thing I could say about the show is that you got to learn more about Nick Fury than you ever found out in any of the prior films.
Nick Fury has been around literally since the beginning of the MCU, even though his appearance was about 5 minutes at the end, which was the very first after credit scene.
Not even 5 minutes, but yeah.
Right. So yes, we finally got to see who and what Nick Fury is about, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I would like to know more about Rhodey. You know nothing about this guy.
Yep.
Nothing.
He was
except he flew 138 combat missions in the U.S. Air Force. and he has known Tony since college. That's pretty much about it. That's all you know about Rhodey.
Let me disagree with frustrated fan. Frustrated fan sports show says, I absolutely love Secret Invasion and the way it ended was amazing. I don't know if you were under the influence of something, with all due respect, but there was nothing amazing about that ending. I mean, it was just bled. It was meh. I mean, they tried to tie up a lot of loose ends, but there was a lot of ground to cover than what we were given. And I just,
Yeah,
you know,
I think most people would agree this show needed at least 2 more episodes. At least
8 episodes. Yeah. Yeah. 8 episodes of about 50 minutes each. Yes.
yeah,
I agree with
yeah.
you.
They shorted the fans on this. They shorted the
Yeah.
fans. It was interesting. There was
Highly.
a statement recently released by Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, and he talked about the number of ways in which Disney has really been screwing up for the last several years. And one of the things he mentioned was the fact that the quality level of what they put out in the MCU of late has been lackluster.
Right.
He specifically mentioned the television MCU stuff, the Disney Plus television shows.
Yeah.
He says literally the MCU television shows have basically tarnished the brand.
Yeah.
They've watered down the MCU brand,
She-Hulk
and it's true.
specifically, for me, She-Hulk was horrible. Absolutely
I
horrible.
didn't think of She-Hulk. I love She-Hulk. I thought it was fun.
I did not like it at all.
I did not. I like She-Hulk,
For
but
me,
overall, the MCU television shows have been not as good. There's no cohesion with the larger MCU. I mean, the whole phase, the whole last 2 phases have had no cohesion, and that's what made the MCU great. Was seeing all these Easter eggs, seeing these after credit scenes that tied into something else,
yeah.
and tying it all together. That does not exist in this phase.
That's why WandaVision for me was the best overall MCU show.
Because you thought it was leading to something.
Well, it was leading to something, and it came from what WandaVision led into Doctor Strange and the Multitude of Madness.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that film gets a lot of hate. I enjoyed it. I saw it in the theater twice. Nothing else. You got Hawkeye. That was a good series. You had Captain America, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I've met Anthony Mackie. He lives in, I don't know if he lives in Atlanta, but I've run into him a couple of times. I agree that this particular phase has not been as good, and that's one of the issues with the Secret Invasion storyline, because we should have seen some bigger names in this series. I just saw somebody said that there should have been 10 episodes. 8 would have been fine. 8 50-minute episodes to an hour would have been fine. But
yeah. I want to pull up this comment by Austin. He says, "I'm confused. Nick Fury falls in love with an alien."
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. In this final episode, when he kissed Vara, what'd you think of that scene?
I mean, he knows who she is as a person, and he loves who she is as a person. Now, he fell in love, obviously, with the face, but he came to know her as an individual, as an entity. And that's ultimately what he loves. For those of you who are in relationships, God forbid something happens to your partner where they are disfigured or become disabled. Does that mean that you're not going to love them anymore? No. You're still going to love them. Nick Fury, when he met this woman, she looked a certain way, but he came to love her for who she was as a person, as an entity, an individual. So, there's a scene.
I just found it very odd that he was married with her for so long.
A couple of episodes ago.
And that issue of him actually being with her in her normal state just finally came around.
There was a point in time that this is a spoiler because it happened 2 episodes ago. Nick Fury and his wife were sitting across from each other at a table. They were about to shoot each other. Each one of them had guns sitting on a table. Then they both pulled the guns, and instead of murdering the other, they both shot off. They intentionally missed both of them. That shows that they genuinely cared about each other. And Nick said something to the effect that, I don't know if this means that we should renew our vows or what. I don't remember
Get divorced.
Get divorced or renew our vows.
Yeah.
Basically, what he's saying is they each made the conscious decision in a split second to not harm the other, knowing what each one of them was about. That's love. Nick Fury knows that she's a green-skinned alien. He could have literally blown her head off, but he made the conscious decision not to because he cares about who she is as a person, what she does for him emotionally, perhaps even physically. So, yeah, he loves her as an entity and individual.
Frustrated fan says her love for him made her change to a state that she thought would be more pleasing to. That's what bothered me. Is like the fact that she had to basically be in a different form for all these years for him was really unhealthy.
Well, I mean,
I kind of felt bad for her.
You can feel bad for her, but she wasn't doing it for him. She was doing it for her own self-preservation. Understand, she is a green-skinned alien, not native.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain. No. And here's why that doesn't make sense. In the episode in which she's introduced, she's at her own home, which is a home that is in the sticks. It is a rural area in which she lives. There's no one around.
When she changes into the
and she's making dinner or what have you, and he comes home and she changes into her human form.
Yeah.
If this is your husband of X amount of years who knows you're a Skrull, why are you still doing? That's what I found sad.
Yeah,
is that she didn't feel comfortable to be herself around him. I thought it was very unhealthy.
That reminds me somewhat of an ex-girlfriend I had in that, she would put her makeup on all the time. Even if we're just sitting around the house, she would gussy herself up. And I'm like, you don't necessarily have to do that when we're, you don't have to do that at all. A. B, when we're just sitting at home chilling, you don't need to do that. You understand what I'm saying? So I kind of view that in that lens, but you're right. When it was just the two of them in the privacy of their own home, she should not have felt obligated to put on a literal false face. I agree with that aspect. But ultimately, he did love her, and he does love her.
Austin says, I don't get it. Nick Fury, the man himself, is always 3 steps ahead of everyone else, but falls in love with an alien. How? What's wrong with a regular woman? Maybe he likes having her change. Different.
I mean,
he might have her change into various forms. It's kind of freaky.
She is a regular woman who just so happens to not be of Earth, and she has certain aspects that he likes. I mean, you can't necessarily control who you love, Plus the fact, as Paul just said, I mean, you with somebody who can look like Megan Thee Stallion 1 second and Beyonce the next. What the hell is wrong with that?
Frustrated says she admitted that she did because, remember, that was her second form. Still, she should be able to be herself.
And she is now. And he still kissed her green-skinned alien face. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, man, 2 hours. Quick. Go by quick.
Yeah. Hey, we want to thank everybody for joining us. Please take a second and like this video. Share it. If you got social media, just share it. Share it on Facebook. Share it on YouTube. Share it on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you got. Share it. That's how we grow our channel and get to keep doing what we're doing for y'all. And look, if you got $1, $2, hit the super chat button. It helps us to pay to keep Black Comic Lords going and pay for all the stuff that we need to do these videos. We really appreciate it. Just whatever you can donate, hit the super chat button. It's the one that looks like a $. That would be tremendously helpful. But until next time, go ahead.
We just need to figure out what other black whiskey. We'll talk about it later on. What other black whiskey manufacturer?
Well, we've never done Uncle Nearest. We can do Uncle Nearest next time.
Well, here's the thing. I would say no, only because I've had Uncle Nearest a lot of times. I want to try.
As have I. Hey, here we go. Frustrated fans. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. One of the reasons why I also wanted to get some money in super chat is to do our new super chat.
So both of us have had Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest is great.
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
it. But we don't need, personally, I don't think that we need to do it for this channel. Uncle Nearest is good, folks. Go out and get it. We should find something else. But I wanted to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give Bro Brothers probably about a 7, 7.5. I enjoyed it.
This was good stuff. I mean, I'm pleased with this.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, it's not the best whiskey that I've ever had, like I said, which is why it's a 7.5.
I got this literally for $25. Yeah. For $25, this is an excellent bourbon.
And that's one of the things that's so disappointing about the whole Jason Aldean Wolf Moon situation. I was buying that bottle for literally $15 a bottle, and it was. This is very, very disappointing, because it's phenomenal. But that being said, we will find another Black-owned whiskey distributor, dealer, and try to bring it to you guys next time we have a meeting. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining us on a Friday night. You could be doing anything, but you're here, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
We do. We absolutely do. Until next time, peace.
Peace.
Hit that like button. We'll see you next time.